Hey everybody, this is Maxine Taylor, and I have a new addition to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to be airing it right now. It is called Maxine Taylor's Trumpology Report, and this is me reporting astrologically on all things Trump, related to Trump, and the people related to Trump. And as I said, it will be done astrologically. When I was CNN's on-air astrologer, I was doing live political forecasts based only on astrology. At the time, I didn't read the newspaper. It was too negative. I didn't watch TV news or listen to radio news, too negative. I simply used astrology. And since I've been a student, we're always a student, of astrology for 50 years, I think I can safely say that astrology is a valid way of understanding people and situations. So I thought, with the current situation what it is, for this first broadcast of my Trumpology report, I would compare Trump's chart to Putin's chart. Now, I know that we have an accurate birth time for Trump because I've worked his chart and I know the diurnals work. We have, I went to Astro Data Bank, and the birth time for Putin is not necessarily accurate. We can only do our best, okay? I'm going to use Lois Rodden's information because she founded the Astro Data Bank and did a marvelous job. So I thought I would compare what Putin triggers in Trump's chart and what Trump triggers in Putin's chart, just so we can get a picture of what's going on. Now, those of you who practice astrology or study astrology know that there's a great deal involved in chart comparison. I'm going to give it a very simple, easy to understand interpretation so that those of you who do not study astrology will be able to follow along. Okay, what I do is take, in this case, I've put Trump's chart on the innermost wheel and Putin's planets around the outside. And my mantra is, conjunctions tell the tale. So when somebody else's planets sit in your birth chart, they activate that area of life where they sit. So I'm going to start, interestingly enough, excuse me, I'm going to start over here in the 12th house, because this is a very powerful house. This is the behind-the-scenes activities. This deals with our hidden enemies. This deals with all behind-the-scenes goings on. And whenever I do a politician's chart, that's where I start. Okay, so we find that, as we know, Pluto, the planet of control, is in Donald's 12th house. Mars, the planet of action, of fire, of fighting, passion, what he puts first, is in his 12th house as well. And so Putin's south node, which is a karmic significator indicating a karmic tie with the past, and also indicating a tendency to drain the energy from wherever it falls. Putin's south node is in Trump's 12th house. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes activity, whether verbal or actually meeting in person, that goes on, that Putin triggers in Trump's life. Putin's midheaven, authority, the power, sits on Trump's Mars. And so he influences Trump behind the scenes. He influences his energy. It gets him going. And Putin's Pluto, the planet of control, is also in his 12th house. Natally, Trump has Pluto in his 12th house. This is behind the scenes control. Putin's Pluto sits on Trump's Mars, controlling him from behind the scenes, and sitting on his ascendant, the most personal point in the chart, so that there is a strong emphasis on Putin controlling Trump. Well, we're going to look at the reverse in just a few minutes, so just hang in there with me. Looking at Trump's second house of money and values, Putin's sun, the giver of life, sits on Trump's Neptune. Wherever the sun falls, even from somebody else's chart, that brings life to that area. So Putin brings life to the finances in Trump's chart. Putin's sun sits on Trump's Neptune. Neptune is the idealist, the dreamer. And so Putin gives him wonderful visions of sugar plums, so to speak. Doesn't mean he won't deliver. He triggers the dream of creating more money in Trump's chart. Putin's sun sits on Trump's Jupiter. Jupiter is abundance, and in the second house of money, with Putin's sun there, he can create more money for Trump. And Saturn, the planet of reality and possibly restriction, in Putin's chart, triggers Trump's Jupiter, saying, whoa, let's just slow it down. Let's not get too carried away here. So that's what's triggered in the financial arena from Putin to Trump. Now, Putin's Neptune, the dreamer, the divine inspiration, sits on Trump's third cusp. The third house is the conscious mind. And so the visions of sugar plums are rekindled. And I'm saying visions of sugar plums because Neptune is divine inspiration, or the dream, the impossible dream that can manifest. It absolutely can. So Putin's Mercury, which is his conscious mind, awakens Trump's ideas and communication. His ascendant sits in Trump's third house. The ascendant is the most personal point in the chart. And so Putin encourages Trump to talk, to communicate, to share ideas. And Putin's Venus, love, money, is also in Trump's third house. And so what Putin awakens in him are new ideas and positive feelings, which they have for each other. Now, Putin's Mars. Mars is the warrior. Mars is what you throw yourself into. Mars is what comes first to you. Mars, from Putin's chart, is in Trump's fourth house of home, family, and real estate. And so Mars fires up Trump's desire for more real estate. There can possibly be arguing over real estate, even with family members, because the fourth house is family. And so just keeping it on a surface level, with Mars, Putin's Mars in Trump's fourth house, he can help Trump create more real estate. Putin's North Node is in Trump's sixth house, which helps his health and his daily work picture. This is great. Moving back up to the ninth house, Putin's Jupiter, which is the great benefic expansion, sits in Trump's ninth house of long-distance communication, foreign friends. It triggers his midheaven. When one person's Jupiter sits on your midheaven, it expands your career. And while Putin's moon and vertex, the vertex is the karmic role in life, of course, sits in Trump's 10th house, it does not sit on any of the planets. But what it does, the moon triggers change. It also triggers an emotional attachment and an emotional tie to that area. Wherever the moon is what you are emotionally drawn to for security. And so with the moon up there, Putin's moon, he is triggering within Trump the desire, the emotional need for leadership. And the vertex there indicates that there is a karmic place that Putin plays in Trump's leadership. Well, obviously, that's exactly what's been happening. And Uranus, the rebel. Love Uranus. Uranus says, I'm going to bust loose. And so Putin's Uranus sits on Trump's Saturn. Now, Saturn is restriction, it's reality, it's structures. In his 11th house, Saturn indicates a desire to be the leader in groups, which he is. I mean, look at his 10th house, he's a natural leader. Well, Uranus on Putin's Uranus on Trump's Saturn liberates him from the need to be traditional, from the need to be structured. And Uranus on his Venus says, let's have fun. Venus is what you love. And Trump loves being with groups of people. He thrives in that area. And here's Uranus saying, let's bust loose. Let's have freedom. Let's enjoy. And so you can see there are very interesting placements from Putin's chart to Trump's chart. So now let's do just the reverse and talk about what Trump triggers in Putin's chart. It's easier to use the last names. It's shorter. It's okay. So we've got lots of activity going on here. Let me start with, again, the 12th house of behind the scenes activities. And just as in Trump's chart, Trump has Pluto and Mars, fighting and control and transformation, but in his 12th house. But when you're dealing with politics, we interpret the chart a little bit more mundanely. I tend to be very optimistic and very positive when I read a chart. I have found that in politics, you stick to a more mundane interpretation. It just seems to work. Okay, Trump's Jupiter, the great benefic, sits on the cusp, the strongest part of Putin's 12th house. It opens up his 12th house. What's 12th house? Our hidden enemies, all of our hidden enemies, behind the scenes activities, behind the scenes dealings, prisons, hospitals, anything that the public does not see. And Putin has Saturn there, so there is a fear of the unknown in Putin's chart. There is Neptune in his 12th house, which is the dreamer. And let me see, yes, they are conjunct. And so with Saturn, Neptune conjunct, there can be guilt about behind the scenes activities. Very interesting. But Mercury is also in his 12th house. And this is where he does his communicating best. The subconscious mind is very active. He needs private time for sure. Very interesting. We'll get to the 10th house in just a minute. But Trump's Jupiter opens all of this up. It expands it. It makes it even more so. So while Trump can lift some of that fear and fire up more of the wishful thinking in Putin and really have him talking more, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to manifest positively in Putin's life. In other words, the Jupiter there can be more guilt, more fear, etc. It's just the nature of the beast, so to speak. Now, let's move on to the second house. Trump's moon and south node are, the moon is change. The south node is that area of karmic resonance. It sits on Putin's Mars in his second house. Mars in the second creates money. The most important thing to somebody with Mars in their second house is money and possessions. And so the moon there changes it. Changes his drive and adds an emotional tone. The south node there can drain that money. Interesting. I don't mean it's going to be a literal drain, but there is a karmic tie, a karmic financial tie between the two of them that we are seeing. Trump's vertex, his karmic role in life, sits in Putin's third house, and so there's a lot more communication that we're going to be having with Putin, of course, because our incoming president will be communicating more with him. Trump's midheaven, his power slot, his public image in the world, triggers Putin's Jupiter. And this means that there can be relationships with one another, where Trump wants to be the authority. Now, the seventh house in a mundane chart deals with our open enemies, our allies who are our frenemies very often. The 12th house, our hidden enemies. So 12th house is all that's hidden, and that's what Trump awakens in Putin. Needs no awakening in Putin's chart, we know that. Okay, and because the 12th house is there in everybody's chart. The Trump's midheaven then can make us either an open enemy or an ally. Very interesting. Now, the 8th house of Putin's chart. while Trump's Uranus, North Node, and Sun sit in Putin's 8th house. They do not conjunct the moon or the vertex. Still, the 8th house is other people's money. It's joint finances, and it is all secrets, any secret at all. And so Trump awakens that. The sun, the giver of life, is in Putin's 8th house. The North Node is there, opening up communications of a private level. So you can see there's a lot of privacy, a lot of behind-the-scenes activities going on. The 8th house secrets, 12th house behind the scenes. Uranus, the rebel, awakens all kinds of opportunities of a financial nature and a secretive nature in Putin's chart. Now, let's look at this 9th house of the higher mind and long-distance journeys and foreigners. Trump's Mercury, Saturn, Venus, and Pluto all sit in Putin's 9th house. Now, his Saturn, Trump's Saturn, which is a very serious, practical, logical planet, sits on Putin's Uranus. With Uranus in his 9th house, Putin believes in being a rebel, in doing things unexpectedly, and with Trump's Saturn there, it kind of holds him back a little bit, holds him down a little bit, maybe brings him more reality. Venus, of course, in that 9th house, Trump's Venus in Putin's 9th house, will bring the love of travel, the love of foreigners. In this case, it would be the United States. And Trump's Pluto sits on Putin's South Node. Again, a karmic tie from the past dealing with control. So Pluto wants to control that South Node. And so there's an element of control from chart to chart. Now look at the 10th house. This is your public image. This is leadership. And it's a very powerful 10th house because Putin has one planet in the 10th house. And that is Pluto, the planet of control. We know, those of us who are light workers and know that any planet can manifest positively or negatively. We know that Pluto is the planet of transformation. Out with the old, in with the new. It is all or nothing. Pluto is all or nothing, total annihilation or total transformation. It depends on how you use Pluto. Now, we all have Pluto in our charts. Doesn't mean we're a world leader. It means that wherever Pluto is, that's the area of life in which we decided we were going to either be in control or we were going to transform and take charge. When you take charge, you don't come from control anymore. When you come from control, you are controlled by the control, which means you come from fear because there's the fear of annihilation. With Trump's Mars, passion, war, fire, on Putin's Pluto, he reinforces Putin's desire to be in control. Because they're both, Mars is the planet of war. Mars is the planet of aggressiveness. Thank goodness we have Mars or we'd never move forward. So Mars can be really great. But when it sits on somebody's Pluto, it triggers their need for control. Can it trigger a transformation? Possibly. However, Trump's ascendant, most personal point in the chart, also sits on Putin's Pluto. Now remember, Putin's Pluto sits on Trump's ascendant, as I just showed you. And so there is a control from Putin to Trump. Very interesting. Trump's Neptune sits on Putin's sun. Neptune is the dream. Neptune is the divine inspiration or escape, make-believe. And so, interestingly enough, Putin has his sun in the 11th house, and this is a placement for a humanitarian, somebody who loves the people, who works with the people. Well, Trump also has 11th house planets, and Trump's Neptune on Putin's sun will inspire him, filled him with the visions of sugar plums dancing in his head, or a certain amount of, it's either wishful thinking or deception. With Neptune, it's like trying to grab a handful of smoke. I call it nebulous, nefarious Neptune. So, this is an overly simplified interpretation of what both Trump and Putin trigger in each other. There's much more involved in a chart comparison, but I hope it's given you some information that is helpful to you. If I may be of service to you, if you would like a reading from me, just go to my website, MaxineTaylor.com. And so, until next time, when I do another Trumpology report, this is Maxine Taylor saying, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours.